we are talking music business, and it is so important on every level to make sure that you know what you're signing, you know what you're getting into, you know what you're spending. Don't get so excited that, the record company wants to spend 100. Like, we had this guy come over from America to mix our record, and he was charging us $4,500 US per song to mix, plus the best studio in Sydney to mix it in, plus the time of the producer to sit there and watch him mix. It's just ridiculous money and pointless money. And if I'd had my time again, there's no way I would have done that.
Welcome to the Music Business Facts Podcast, where successful music industry experts share their industry secrets that will help you take your music career to the next level.
G'day guys, Rodney Holder here, and thank you so much for joining me on Music Business Facts. This is the podcast where I interview successful music industry entrepreneurs and try and educate you, my listeners, exactly how and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing when you're trying to forge a career in the music business. And my guest today is a good old mate of mine, D.W. Norton, Richie Norton. D.W. played in a legendary Australian band called Superheist, and if you haven't heard of Superheist, you should go check them out. And I'll put some links on my show notes over at musicbusinessfacts.com, where you can see their old stuff and also check out some of their new stuff. Now, if you didn't know, Superheist were formed back in 1993, and they went through many incarnations from extreme death metal before finally finding their commercial success in the late 90s, early 2000s with the nu metal style, which most of their fans would recognise them with today. DW is also an accomplished audio engineer and producer who has worked with many successful pioneering Australian metal acts like Damaged, Destroyer 666, and my band Alchemist, just to name a few. And after a 13-year hiatus, Superheist are back with a new album, a new vocalist, and a new tour, so really looking forward to that. Now, Superheist, they're a very interesting music business case study, and I often talk about them in my music business lectures, particularly when I'm discussing image, which is obviously a very important component of the successful musician equation, and of course songwriting, which is the most important element of the formula. And by the way, if you haven't yet downloaded my free musician success formula, go and check it out. You can get it for free at musicbusinessfacts.net/free report. And there you'll get the best recipe for musician success that there is. And I've taken that success formula from a top-notch Australian manager in John Watson. So yeah, go and check that out. Now, Superheist started out as a small Aussie metal act that used to support my band Alchemist back in the day. And I can actually remember one day when Richie told me that they were essentially going to completely change everything that they had done up to that initial point in time. They were going to essentially sell out, or buy in, as Richie states. The band had realised that there wasn't enough money in death metal in Australia at the time, and they were getting older, and so they decided that they were going to write a record that was more based on what was happening on radio at the time. And if my memory served me right, that was bands like Linkin Park, Foo Fighters, Silverchair, Rage Against the Machine. That was essentially the formula that they were going to use to compose their new sound and their new songs. And I can actually remember thinking back at that time that these guys are crazy. That'll probably never work. These guys are a death metal band, and what they're going to do is they're going to lose all their fans. Well, guess what? It did work. And it did pay off. Yes, they did probably lose the core majority of the fans they had at the time, but they certainly replaced those fans tenfold with many, many more new commercial fans. They signed a pretty good deal at the time. Well, at least it was perceived to be a good deal, both recording and publishing. And then they released that new record, and seemingly overnight they were on high rotation on Triple J, they were on Channel V, they were getting all of the international supports that all of us other metal bands wanted, like Fear Factory and Sepultura. They were playing the big day out, they were programming Rage, they were selling out venues across the country. They got an amazing manager in Greg Donovan, who I've had on the show a couple of times before and done webinars with. And I was absolutely amazed that, this was the band that I, used to sort of play on top of, and then all of a sudden I had to eat some humble pie and had to knock on their door and say, hey, Richie, can we support you guys? Because they had this incredible audience. So I actually do think it's a pretty cool story, and I really wanted to dig in and try and find out exactly what was true and what was the myth behind how it went down. I know they had a lot of turmoil in the band. They went through a couple of singers. Best friends who had been together all of this time, they split up and all of this kind of crazy stuff happened. and then they disappeared. So in this conversation, we discuss numerous music business related topics. We talk about things like copyright ownership and, when you write a song, how you stick all that together and how they did that. We talked about the lineup changes, the record deals, the music publishing, and also some of the mistakes that Superheist made, because like most bands who are finding their way and not really being educated, you do certainly tend to make a lot of mistakes, and Superheist certainly did, as well, as you'll hear in the story. So anyhow, I hope you enjoy my interview with DW, Dick Willie, Big Duds Norton, the man from Superheist. Sit back and enjoy. And like I said, it was great catching up with Richie, and I'll see you on the other side of the podcast. I'm here today with my good mate Richie Norton, who I haven't seen or spoken to for a while. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Rodney. I'm very well. Always good to see your face.
Excellent, mate. And it's great to see you as well. Listen, mate, as you know, I've been doing a podcast about the music industry. It's called Music Business Facts, and I thought with your band coming out and doing a reinvigoration of what you've done in the past. But before we get onto that, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself personally for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you're all about, mate?
Well, the tree behind me looks like I've got horns, so that's kind of cool. You may know me as DW Norton, the guitarist and songwriter from Superheist. Did my time as a studio producer as well, which I'm actually getting back into, which is good. I'm kind of re-immersing myself in the music business again after it was pretty much my life for a good, 15 years, and had a bit of time out. Rejuvenated myself and coming right on back.
Excellent. And so the obvious question, mate, I think I know why, but why did you have the time out? What was the problem there? 13 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've had 13 years off. About 3 of those years I still mucked around with music. I had a band called Walk the Earth, put out a black metal record called Noir Macabre with Matty Skitz from Damaged.
How did that go?
It was good. It sold a few in Europe and sold a little bit here. And as far as sales went, we didn't really plug it. We didn't play any shows. So to sell any was a bonus.
Yep.
But it had really good reviews, which was great. So other than that, we did Walk the Earth, and that was kind of short-lived. But look, I guess the time away from music, it had been pretty much my life since 1992. So to go through full time pretty much, and I didn't even have a job outside of sometimes I'd get a little bit of work in the studio, but that was, wasn't constant. So you're pretty much living on what we call per diems, which was the band used to get, I think it was like $210 a week only when we were touring.
What, each or for the band?
Each, right? So
okay.
If you think you've got to eat, the guys got to buy their smokes and whatever. I mean, you can get by on the road by, saving your rider and swapping your rider for pizza and all that sort of stuff. But, after a while, when in 2003, when we took a break from Superheist, I was 33 years of age, and never had, the opportunity to put my life together financially. And so that coupled with, meeting my wife and having kids and all that sort of stuff, it was time to go into other facets of my life and set up business for myself, which I've done.
Yep.
I've done quite, reasonably successfully. And look, 13 years later, I've decided to get back into it because I miss it. I miss music and I miss the creativity. Music's a great outlet for whatever ails you, really. And in business, when you're in business for yourself, there's a lot of stress. And I'm enjoying the ability to be able to come home, forget about work, crack a beer, write some music, and that's been great. It's been over the last 18 months I've been doing that.
Awesome. Well, listen, mate, like I said, I've known you a long time, and I'd like to go right back, and I'd like to, bring up some of my recollections of our relationship and our bands playing and touring together and the stuff that you've done. Then you can tell me whether or not my memory's right or wrong, and we'll see how we go, eh?
It depends on whether you're going to have positive or negative statements here, because my recollection could be a bit hazy as well.
Yeah, you reckon you've erased all the negative recollection?
All the bad stuff's gone.
All right, well, we'll see how we go. But I often tell people that, we used to play with this band called Superheist, and we, at the start, we were always sort of, we were headlining above you, basically. We were a bigger band.
We looked up to Alchemist, of course.
And I can remember you sitting down with me one day and you basically said to me, we're gonna change the whole plan, because you started out as a grindcore sort of death metal, black metal band. You wanted to be the heaviest band on earth, and I think you were originally going to be called Orgheist.
Yeah, good memory.
And you sat down and you actually gave me this plan, and I remember thinking, wow, these guys are really thinking about it. You were thinking not just about the music and how your music was going to completely change, but you sat down, I think you sat down with Bob Stevens from Roadrunner. He might have given you some of these ideas. And you actually described to me how you were looking at what's popular on the radio, you were looking at Triple J, you were citing to me bands like Silverchair, Rage Against the Machine, the Foo Fighters, I think it was also Limp Bizkit, all that sort of new metal stuff, and that you were going to come out and reinvent yourself, and that was a big part of the plan, and the look was going to be different, everything was going to be different. Is that a fair recollection of what you did?
It's exactly what we did. It was definitely a deliberate ploy.
Yeah, okay.
What we did. We decided that, and I know I'm still a metalhead. I love metal, but to me it was more of a challenge to try and strip it all back and write music that could still be heavy and still have power, but still be palatable enough to get on the radio and hopefully make money from.
Yep.
I've got a lot of friends that are in metal, and you're in it your whole life, and yourself as you can be one of the top metal bands and not make any money.
Yep.
Especially in Australia, right?
Yep.
So we thought to be able to do what we do and what we love to do, we need to streamline it so that we can get money from it. And that's not like a sellout thing. It's more, I call it more of a buy-in. So I'm looking,
okay.
I'm looking at the industry going, there's a supply and demand here. And I'm the same now in business now. I look for areas where, for example, I own a tattoo shop.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that people wait 3 to 6 months to book in for a tattoo.
Yep.
Because everybody's so booked out. And I thought, hang on a minute, I can open a tattoo shop. I can employ great tattooists, so I know them all. And I can tap into some of that supply and demand. And so that's where I guess that comes from inside me, where I'm moving around because I've got to go plug in and charge my battery.
That's all right, mate.
But it is a definite ploy.
Yeah.
And one that, it may not have worked to the financial degree, but I guess in the Australian environment, we did not too bad for a heavy band.
Yeah. Look, and I want to go back because I do have a strong recollection of it, and I actually use Superheist in a lot of my lectures when I talk about, for instance, image. You took what I see was a pretty massive gamble because at that stage you were playing to, you did have a core audience who really loved what you do and stuff like, your really retarded Barbie demos and, really heavy hardcore stuff that people really loved. And you essentially took the gamble that you were going to alienate a lot of those people in order to reach a much broader market, correct?
100%. We knew there'd be backlash.
Yeah.
But we were prepared for that because it was what we wanted to do, and I still stand by that. Particularly in any creative area, you need to do what you want to do in your heart.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to do in our hearts. Like we started out as a grindcore band, but we still kept a lot of those elements in the pop music that we were trying to write. Yeah. So to me, it still has the metal sound to it, but we were definitely trying to get on the radio, 100%. Trying to get a record deal in America, trying to crack it, and we didn't succeed, but we gave it a red hot go. We came really close. So artistically, there was no compromise on our side on the way that we felt about what we were doing. Yeah. In fact, there was no compromise on any level, and that's why we were so targeted in what we wanted to do, because we weren't compromising for us. Yeah. We may have compromised what other people hoped or dreamed that Superheist would be.
Definitely.
It's the same now. When we put out when we put out this next record, it may not please everybody, but I tell you who it does please. It pleases us. We love it, and we feel like it's the best record that we could make now, and the exact direction and sound that we want to deliver at this moment. And that's so important from because you need to go out there and back it up with your heart and soul.
Yeah.
If you've gone and done something that's perhaps for another reason that's outside of your heart, that doesn't go in parallel with your heart, because you've got heart and you've got business and you've got decisions you've got to make. They all need to run together. The minute that they don't, it comes across as a bit off. And you'll get found out. I really believe that. And you can see that. You can see clearly when bands come up, and you can see that it's been a management team that's put them together. You don't have to be, a rocket scientist to figure that out. You see it.
Yeah.
But bands that are delivering great music, regardless of maybe there's been many bands that have put out records that have not sounded like their last record.
Yeah, of course.
Many.
Of course.
And maybe their haircuts are a bit different. So it's not really that out of the blue. But I will say this, it makes me laugh. When you put a record out that's a little bit detracted from the last one, people will criticise you because it's not the same as your last one. But if you put out an album that was exactly the same as the last one, you'd be criticised too. So, a lot of bands, Alchemist is one of them. You guys, every album switched up. You brought new elements in and new sensibilities and maturity and songwriting, and it was always a great experience to get a new Alchemist record. Not pumping you up because I'm looking at you, but it's a fact. And I produced a couple of them too. So
yeah, well, look,
maybe that's why they were so good.
Well, we don't want to talk about Alchemist because that's another story, but we do want to talk about your production career. But I'm going to get to that later. I want to go back to the notion, just for the people watching or listening to this, that the way that you flipped your image worked for you, but there are many examples where it was a failure for some bands. And the one I always go to is a band like Celtic Frost, who tried to sell out and do not similar to you, but the idea, completely broaden their market. And there was a huge backlash, and from my perspective, it pretty much ruined their career. But anyhow, the next thing I remember about you guys, Richie, then was that it actually worked for you. And, as an observer on the sideline who knew perhaps 12 months before you were going to do what you did, I saw you go from the band who used to support my band to by far surpassing us. You were getting all of the international supports, the Fear Factories, the Sepulturas, the Big Day Outs, all that stuff. Your record sounded amazing. You had the great music videos. You were on High Rotation Triple J, all that sort of shit. Can you give us an indication, or just a bit of an insight into that story of the Bob Stevens thing from Roadrunner, and how did it actually work for you? Was it a fluke? Was there a bit of luck? Was it connections? What happened?
Mate, it's a great story.
Yeah.
So we in maybe 96 or 97, when we were thinking how we were going to put out Chrome Matrix, which is one of the EPs that we did. It was the first EP we did after our Apocalypse demo, and it was kind of the first glimpse of maybe where we were heading. It was still heavy, it was double kick and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, we thought we'd be smart, and we figured out a way to get ourselves recognised at Shock Records. So we ordered pizzas, and we slipped a CD into every pizza box and had them delivered to the offices
of Shock.
Of Shock Records, which completely backfired on us because we ordered Meat Lovers pizzas, and all the staff at Shock were vegan, so we really offended them instead. But
didn't do your research, mate.
We didn't do our research, and we went all guns blazing and ran out with our tails between our legs. But what it did do was they certainly knew the name Superheist.
Yep.
And we ended up getting signed by Shock Records. It was actually one of those vegans, Diane Meyer, that ended up putting that record out for us. With the help of Simon Dower from Bremelin.
Yep.
And then after that, we did a far more commercial sounding record in 8 Miles High, and that was where we started getting offered record deals.
Yep.
Shock Records was the one we wanted to go with because they'd been kind enough to do our EP before that on a licensing deal. So we went to the only person that we knew that might know something about the music industry, and that was Bob Stevenson, who was, I think, the marketing or the publicist for Roadrunner Records.
Yep.
And a friend of the band. Bob helped us negotiate the deal, and we got it over the line, and we ended up being, along with Frenzel Rom and Body Jar, the priority artists at Shock Records. It was a shitty record deal, I've got to say. We never saw a cent from it, even to this day. In fact, if you think, we probably spent maybe 120 grand on the album recording it. This is a prize recruit.
Yep.
We had some videos, and then we did IRCR with them, some videos. To this day, Shock Records claim that Superheist is still $350,000 unrecouped. Yet to this day, I've never seen a statement. In all the time I've been in a band and signed, I've never seen a statement from Shock Records.
So have you ever thought about getting an accountant and, auditing them, which you're totally, in your rights to do?
It just costs money. It's like a few $1,000 to get maybe $5,000 to get an accountant to go in and do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd need to be pretty confident that they're stitching me up, and I've got no idea.
Yeah.
Because we didn't take, and this is, we are talking music business, and it is so important on every level to make sure that you know what you're signing, you know what you're getting into, you know what you're spending. Don't get so excited that, the record company wants to spend 100. Like, we had this guy come over from America to mix our record, and he was charging us $4,500 US per song to mix, plus the best studio in Sydney to mix it in,
mm-hmm.
plus the time of the producer to sit there and watch him mix. It's just ridiculous money and pointless money.
Yeah.
And if I'd had my time again, there's no way I would have done that.
Yeah. Okay.
But things are cheaper now.
Obviously.
You don't have to spend that sort of money now. The record industry's changed, as we all know. There's not that money to spend, and things are pegged back. And I think, and I would like to think, that bands are a little smarter and better looked after on that level.
Mm.
But we were foolish. I mean, number one, we had Bob Stevenson negotiate our record deal, not a music lawyer. We should have used a music lawyer.
Yeah.
In fact, it is that, if I really dig deep, that record contract that we signed with Shock Records is actually null and void because we didn't have legal counsel. You have to have legal counsel to make a contract, advice to make a contract stick, and we didn't. So, really, if we wanted to go to town on it, we probably could, but who's got the time?
I don't know if that's necessarily true, Rich, but anyway, I'm not a lawyer.
I like to think of it that way, but it's probably not.
It'd be a good legal fisticuffs, I'm sure.
Yeah, indeed.
Listen, another thing I remember is that a part of that deal with Shock, you got a nice publishing deal as well, didn't you guys? It's quite reasonable.
Oh yeah, it was all right. Yeah, for the time, I suppose it was pretty good.
And I remember that it was around that time you bought yourself I think it was a brand new Ford Ranger, was it? Was that?
No, and it wasn't from that money. It wasn't that money.
Okay.
No.
So that's an urban myth, then, it's in my mind.
It's an urban myth, and to be, straight up, I think the advance was about 30,000, and that went across the whole band.
Right.
So really, it wasn't a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
We had some equipment on top of that. I think maybe about 11 or 12 grand's worth of equipment as part of that.
Yep.
Which my part of the equipment was you'll remember this, was a Gibson Les Paul dual cutaway. It was about $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I used it once and hated it. And I swapped it with DD from Pod People for a video camera that was worth about $800.
That was a bad business decision, mate.
That was a bad business decision. But the things you do, and that's the thing, when you're literally just playing and loving it, and some of the business decisions get overlooked because really, really, when you're in that position and you've got a record company saying, we're going to sign you, we're going to pay for your album, we're going to promote you, we're going to put you on these tours, we're going to get you all over every newspaper and Pepsi Cola can, if you remember that. You're just going to say yes.
Yeah.
You are, because that's what you want when you're in a band. You want to get signed and you're so excited, you just get caught up with it and you just roll with it. So
yeah, well, look, that's this reason for this podcast that I do. I want to play a role in helping young musicians and songwriters become more aware of things like this, which, you know, I certainly wasn't, and you obviously weren't at the time. So
I needed your podcast back then.
Another thing from memory was with the Superheist songwriting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for most of them it was you 40%, Berger, your singer, 40%, and the rest of the guys shared the 20% because you and Rod did the majority of the writing. Is that correct?
I can't remember the actual splits, but that's an interesting point that you bring up, because what was supposed to happen, only Berger and myself wrote. The other guys would just add their own flair, right?
Yep.
But I wrote all the music and he wrote all the words.
Yep.
And the vocal melodies. It's the same now. Me and Zeke, the other guys aren't involved. We write the whole thing and then we take it to them and then we learn it and they add their own flair to it, right? So Superheist right now is 50-50, Ezekiel Ox, DW Norton, publishing straight down the middle. Back then, we donated, if you like, a portion of our publishing to the band in order to try and make things a little bit fairer. I mean, it's not completely fair to give them a full even split with us because they don't write.
Yep.
They don't take the time to write. They never bothered to learn to write, or they don't have the talent to write. And I think in some ways it was the wrong decision to do that. Mm-hmm. What was supposed to happen was at the end of when the band stopped, it was written into those publishing deals that any donated splits would stop at that point when the band ended.
Yep.
In 2003. But it never happened. It was too hard to go back and pay lawyers and all that sort of stuff to try and rewrite the contract and take those other guys out of it. And again, bad advice.
Yep.
And I think my whole view now is, if you're the songwriter and it's your intellectual property, it's your money. The rest of the band need to understand that they don't have that talent or they don't have the want to be a writer. They're blessed to be able to play your music and write and tour and make money for themselves that way. Mm-hmm. Your publishing is your publishing, and it's your money. You got to have it.
So there's a couple of things I'd like to address there, Richie. The first one is for anyone watching or listening that you've got to have that conversation with your co-writers, if there are co-writers, correct, about the breakdowns of the
100%, and it can get a little convoluted, but there's always a way around it. But if you're the songwriter, in my case, I write the song from start to finish, add all the bits into it. You know, sometimes someone might come in and write a keyboard line over the top. If you consider that to be a hook and a selling point for the song,
yep,
you might write them into it. But chord structure, lyrics, melody, that's the song. The fairy dust that goes on top with, excuse me for a sec. The fairy dust on top, I don't think that's part of songwriting. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, well, look, and again, for the listener or the viewer, what it comes down to is you make that decision with your co-writers. There's no sort of hard and fast rules.
No, there's not. You could be if you have. We were advised by management and our publicist back then not to split it.
Yep. Okay.
Don't do that. That's not what you do. That's not. But you can do that if you feel like that's how you feel. Like you said, there's no rule to it.
Yeah.
But from my experience, I think now some of the band members from back then that were handed money for not being a part of the songwriting, I don't even speak to now. So what good was that, you know?
And when you go out on this next tour coming up, will you be playing any of the old songs? I imagine you'll have to.
Oh, yeah, there's, I think it's a good 50-50 of old and new.
And so the takeaway for that is the blokes who were at home who never even, well, you say, weren't involved in the songwriting, or for someone like Berger who did write half, he'll be generating performance income for as you go out
They
and play.
will.
Yeah.
That's right. So, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yep.
So it's a really big decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, is it, what's the name of them? Aussie band, the guy with the big hair and...
Wolf Mother.
Wolf Mother.
Yep.
Classic. You know, he didn't share his publishing. And, you know, I don't know the ins and outs, but from what I hear, the rest of the band got the shits with that and took off. You know, is that right? I mean, I don't know.
But one thing I do know, Richie, after speaking to 100 or so people now on podcasts like this, is that there is a pattern of the bands who stay together share their stuff. So that's an interesting thing that counters what you've had to say. That, and I suppose, you know, for a band like you, because this is what I thought your story was. I thought you got this publishing advance, and you and Rod took a big hunk of money. And the other guys in the band were sitting there going, well, hang on, I can't even sort of afford to pay my rent. So is that another myth, or?
Yeah, that's a myth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, everybody got some money out of that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
No, we didn't. There was no hunk of money. Like, I think I got $8,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Out of that first lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the other guys, you know, they might have got $3,000.
All right.
You know, so yeah, I got a little bit more, but it's not a lot of money.
And you did more work, so you know.
100%. Like, and the band was me and Berger from the start.
Yeah.
You know, we were the constant members. You know, we were the ones that made those record deals happen.
Yeah.
You know, we got out there and we peddled it. The other guys at the time sat back and waited for us to do things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot more to it than may meet the eye.
Sure.
You may think, oh, well, fuck, these guys just got $8,000. This guy got $3,000. Well, that guy deserved his $8,000.
Yeah, look, absolutely. You know, there's definitely that two sort of sides to it. That, you know, you were at home writing songs while the other guys were down the pub or watching TV or whatever it might have been.
That's right. And you wonder about those situations, as you said, the bands that split it all up evenly.
Yeah.
Are they also sharing the load in other areas as well? Is another guy quasi managing the band, or is he the one helping organise the promotion or running the merch? Or there's so many jobs inside a band.
Yeah, exactly.
And when the most of it's, you know, are they financing it? You know, me and Berger financed the first 3 albums or three releases.
Yep.
You know, ourselves. Nobody else put any money in. So there's a lot to it.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
And you could say that those publishing advances were the only chance that we ever got to get some of that money back that we'd invested.
Yep, absolutely. Before we move on, I do want to talk about a business model that's come up a lot on my podcast, just to see what you think. But again, a couple of these bands who realise that if we're in this together, we're probably living off the seat of our pants. There's no money in it. But if the publishing does come in, what some of the songwriters are saying is that, well, it's my song. I wrote all the song. I'm going to register it all in my name with APRA. It's all going to come to me. But whilst you're in the band, I'll share it with you. Whilst you're dragging your ass around the country or the world, I'll share it with you. But as soon as you leave, you get nothing, and it's all in your name. So that's another model for the viewer or the listener to consider.
Well, that's a version of what we did.
Yep.
But we didn't structure it properly, and you know, I'm pretty sure that the second album, Identical Remote Control Reactions, was even splits.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think it was different there. And I'd written even more of that one.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I wrote lyrics and everything for that record.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's horses for courses.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You make decisions at the time that you think are right, and then they're wrong. Who knows? And that's part of learning and growing up.
Yeah, yeah. So listen, you're in this band with your mate, Rod, who I know that you loved and you hated and you had that relationship, but they had that creative nucleus. you get signed, you're doing all these great shows, it looks like everything's happening, you're high rotation on Triple J, and it all falls apart. Do you want to tell us the story? I mean, first of all, do you still speak to Rod? Are you mates?
Yeah. No, we're great mates, yeah.
Okay. What happened back in the day then?
He's been really supportive of this new album. I gave him the option of coming back to do it with me.
Yep.
But, that's not where he is in his life, and I can appreciate that. He's very successful in his business and multi-millionaire.
Yeah, right.
As he loves me to tell people.
What's he doing? Just quickly out of interest. Don't go too long.
Him and his father have a business, and they build nursing homes.
Right. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So he does very well.
Good on him.
Maybe a billionaire. Maybe a multi-billionaire. Nah, I don't know. But he does well.
All right.
Look, back then, we just come back from America.
Yep.
Where we were showcasing to try and get signed. We actually had a bunch of record companies in the US all chip in money to get us to LA.
Yep.
So that we could play in front of them. I think they all, $50,000 or $60,000 to get us over there. Flights, accommodation, rehearsals, equipment, crew, and we did really well. Like we garnered quite a bit of interest. That one big showcase spawned into a number of different showcases. We played for Jordan Scher, who signed Limp Bizkit, at the Viper Room, and he was just standing in the middle of the room by himself. He'd hired the place out just so he could watch us, for example.
Wow.
We all wined and dined, and so that was in late August, early September 2001.
Okay.
Now, everyone will know the significance of early September 2001. So we came back to Australia a few days, or maybe a week before September 11. And in the midst of those negotiations for those contracts, and I didn't know this until many, many years later when I had dinner with my friend Stuart McQueen, who was our shock A&R guy at the time. Yep. And I had dinner with him, and he said, look, we didn't tell you guys at the time, but you were close to one of the biggest recording contracts since Silverchair.
Wow.
In the US. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? He said at the time it was $2 million US. Now back then the Australian dollars of 50 cents, so that was $4 million Australian dollars that was up on the table to sign Superheist. Couple of planes, hit a couple of buildings. America shut shop. By the time we got back in contact with them in February, the A&R person at the two different labels that were vying for Superheist had moved on. It's a very short career for A&R people in the US. And it was over, like it didn't happen.
Yeah, right.
And so there was a lot of frustration from the band. Berger, it was actually, I can't remember the timing of it, but Berger we might have had to move Berger on maybe a little bit before we fully found all that out. But we had a few direction conflicts. We wanted to get away from. I saw that new metal stuff, the rap metal, fading away. I wanted to get rid of that in our sound and become more rock based, heavy rock, but rock based. I saw the onset of bands like Nickelback and stuff like that, and I thought they're going to be massive. That big radio rock songs. I want to do that. Get rid of the rap because that's on its way out. Anyway, Berger didn't want to do that. There was a lot of infighting in the band at the time. Every band goes through it.
Absolutely.
And Berger just decided not to get up and play one night for whatever reason, and said he didn't want to play any of the small shows anymore, only wanted to play the big shows. There was a lot of stupid shit. And so Berger didn't go on stage at this all-ages show in Berwick here in Victoria. So we got the support band singer who knew the words of our song to do the show, which was Joey Byro. The next day, we were the first band to go on the Channel V bus tour. Remember those?
Yep.
Big thing, right? To be chosen as the first band for that. Channel V, they were a big player in the music industry at the time.
Yep.
We could not afford to muck them around. And we said to Berger, mate, you haven't played this show, but we've got this other guy to do it because basically the crowd's there chanting our name when he's saying, I'm not going on. So we said, are you doing the Channel B bus tour? He goes, nah, get that kid to do it. So we went on tour, on the Channel V bus tour with this rookie kid ringing straight off the street. Channel V was like, thanks for not pulling out. At least you did it.
Yep.
Our record label was like, and our management at the time was so pissed off, and label was so pissed off with Berger that they said, if you want to continue with him, we're out.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Berger and said to him, this is a serious problem, man. Everybody wants you out. The label, the management, the rest of the guys in the band, they're all saying if you're in there, out. I said, I said, you're my mate. We've had our differences. We've been blueing a lot lately, but at the end of the day, you can get this back if you go and apologise to them all. And he just wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason. And so it kind of ended right there.
Wow.
And I was really hurt because, I still wanted him back because he was my best friend. And I'm still hurt to this day by it all.
So Berger's out of the band and, it's very hard to replace a lead singer, right? In my opinion, Iron Maiden did it, Van Halen did it, AC/DC did it. Very few others can do it. I don't think Superheist did it, in my opinion, and many of my mates.
Faith No More did it.
Faith No More did it, absolutely. Was that the beginning of the end, do you think? Berger leaving? Was it a slow?
Yeah. No, it was. I think we did a good record in IRCR, but I don't think that it was as good as it could have been, or I don't think it was as received. Do you know what? I don't know. I don't know how it was received, but we did it because we didn't want to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we couldn't continue with Berger.
Yeah.
Eventually, he just said, "I'm out," and that's it.
Yeah.
So it was a funny situation, but you know what? If we had got Zeke, then we would have smashed it on that level.
Well, let's talk about Zeke now. Then, how did Zeke come about, buddy? How does it 13 years later? Richie comes back, a whole new lineup except Drew's the original lineup, right? You on your bass?
Drew's but everybody was invited back.
Yeah,
I've got to say.
Okay.
But it's 13 years later. Like, people have got different lives now.
Yeah.
Sean, he's got a business. He's got a little paella stand and runs it on his own. He's got no time. Yep.
So, tell us about your new vocalist. How did this come about?
Well, during a conversation with one of my business partners, Rick Butterworth, who's a prominent music industry person himself.
Yep.
At our bar that we had together till we recently sold it.
Mm-hmm.
We were discussing maybe doing. He asked me, would Superheist do a reunion tour?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, we wouldn't. But because I'd been started writing again, and I said, but I will do a new album. And then, the conversation started, yeah, but who would sing this, that, and the next thing? We'll try and get Berger and see what Berger's doing. And, when the Berger thing wasn't going to happen, we all agreed the only other guy that we thought in the country that we knew of that was a professional and, great frontman, great vocalist was Ezekiel Ox. So we got him down for a beer.
Mm-hmm.
And asked him, and he was thrilled to be asked.
Cool.
He was a Superheist fan himself, but for whatever reason at the time, it just didn't work out, and it was nearly a year later when we went back to him and said, hey, you know, we pretty much need you, man, because we don't really want to. We only want you. And he said, right, let's do it. So I'd written about 40 songs. And when he said he joined, I scrapped every one of them. We wrote the whole album in about 10 weeks.
Wow.
So just on the vibe of Zeke, because he's a special character. He's a very super talented guy. He brings a great energy, and the album needed to reflect his energy, and it does. So getting Zeke was a big coup. You know, we feel like, you know, this is the guy that really fits what we do. Yep. Really works well.
Cool. And I say this respectfully, but, you know, 13 years is a long time, especially in music. A lot of your fans would have grown up and moved on. Does anyone care? Are you getting any love, or what's the vibe on the new Superheist, especially because it's really only you and Drew from the past?
Huge amount of love. There's I would say probably as 90-10 in favour of nothing but love to minor criticism.
Yeah.
You know, you get and this is a new thing for me. Like, it's kind of funny where Facebook and social media wasn't even a thing when Superheist was around. It didn't exist.
I've seen a few trolls on your website there, mate, on your Facebook page.
Yeah, and I didn't even know what a troll was, you know.
I bet you do now.
I know now. But it's funny, though, like a lot of those trolls, I don't know if you know this, but Zeke's he's a bit of a political activist.
Right.
Especially in, he's a vehement anti-racism fighter, you know.
Okay.
He leads all the rallies and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of those trolls, if you click on and have a look and see who they are, they're all those, you know, One Nation supporters,
right,
with big Aussie flags and all that, and you know, they wear Aussie flag bandanas, and so there's always, you know, something to it. But I find the feedback has been great. A lot of people think that Zeke fits the mold perfectly, which he does. That's a fact. And any criticism I've found, in my opinion, is drawing a long bow.
Yeah.
You know, they might say, that song's shit. But music is and any art is about, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? It's what you see in it and what you like in it.
Totally.
And you can't please everyone.
No.
And I certainly have, as you know, Rodney, you know, I'll take risks and I'll do things because I want to.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I want to take it. And this is where I wanted to take this record. And we went over to, you know, I decided to put my money where my mouth is. And I've completely self-funded this album instead of going to a record label and getting money off them. We've done it all ourselves. And we even went all the way to Los Angeles to record with Jay Baumgartner, who I'd always wanted to make a record with because he's made a lot of my favourite records. So we did a lot of things our way. We just did it our way, and I think it's my best achievement, in my opinion.
And so this new reinvigorated, reinvented Superheist, is it just for Richie Norton to have some fun with some other musicians, or is this a business venture as well? Because you've got all these other business ventures happening now. You know, are you going to be selling merchandise and CDs and going for sync deals and trying to, you know, really make a crack of doing, you know?
We'll do all that. Yeah, we'll do all that stuff. I mean, I've invested a lot of money in it. You know, I'm a business person, so I'm not in the habit of throwing money away. I've probably overspent because it's mine and I want to.
Yep.
Do we have to go to LA to record? No, you know, but we wanted to.
Yep.
And so we did. And but we've definitely got merch. We've got the tour. We've got Rick Butterworth, sourcing out deals in Europe and America and all that sort of stuff. And there's been some really good positive feedback on that, particularly in Europe. Europe don't seem to give a shit about a lot of the politics that people seem to give a shit about here. They just dig music, and if it's good, they're all over it.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you what, mate. I'm looking forward to seeing you live again because you were always a crackingly good band, and the music video, I've seen that, but seeing you guys in the flesh will be very good.
Man, I'm looking forward to seeing Zeke live.
Cool.
With, watch him bouncing around the rehearsal rooms, and he's just such a ball of energy.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Zeke is he will make it his mission to win that crowd over by hook or by crook.
Cool.
And I've never seen him fail. He does his own thing, his solo stuff, and they supported Sidonia, and he was getting booed at the start, and by the end, they were loving him.
Yeah, right.
Because he just wins people over, and he's just such a good dude, and I'm stoked that he's in our band.
Cool. And what about things like partnership agreements and stuff like this? Have you learnt from the past with the Joey Byro stuff? Have you got stuff in writing about who owns the name, or maybe not so much the name because that's probably pretty obvious it's you, but just if the shit hits the fan, have you thought about worst case scenarios if you do become successful, or you're just on the ride?
Look, it's even Stevens across the board for the whole band in every level, except for the publishing.
Yep.
The publishing, as we discussed before, is 50-50.
Yep.
Ox Norton. The rest of the band totally fine with that. They fully get it. They get that. You know.
Cool.
I've funded it, so I will recoup my costs before the band gets paid money.
Yep.
And they're all fine with that as well.
Cool.
So on that level, and nowadays everybody's got a job, makes money, except Zeke. He's the only full-time 100% musician. But the rest of us, got our stuff, ways of making money. So it's not like we're going to be scrounging around like we used to be able to buy some chips at the fish and chip shop, So it's a little bit different nowadays.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Rich, it's been really good talking to you. I would like to talk to you for longer, but I think this has been a pretty good, length of an interview. I wanted to talk about your production. I've actually got a mate who's starting a music production podcast, so I'm going to put him onto you because he's right into
cool,
it. So, he's going to talk to you about that. But, look, mate, I wish you all the best. I can't wait to see you. I'll obviously be at the Brisbane show, and I want to thank you for giving us an insight and your fans an insight to all the stuff that's led you up to where you are today, mate. It's a good story. Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. Well, I guess finally, for anyone listening to this or watching this who did want to make to make it in the music industry, whatever that might mean, I guess the transgression from hobby to career, what advice have you got for people, Rich, with all your years of experience?
Just have your wits about you on a business level. Like if you do want to make it your career, then you're making it your business. So, and it's important to get the right advice. So seek advice, read, because people have written so much about the music business, and it's all there. And it's changed a lot. It's changed to a level where I'm learning now of how it works, because it's just totally different. It's remarkable, the difference in the music industry now. But there's certainly a lot of ways that you can make money in this music industry, which don't even involve being signed to a record label. So, look about you and have your wits about you, learn and make sure that you're covered on every angle and you protect your rights, because your music, that's your property. It's no one else's.
That's it.
You make it and protect it, because I don't know if I ever protected it properly. I've got a backlog of music I'm not allowed to touch because it belongs to someone else apparently.
Yep.
How good's that?
Not so good.
It's not so good. So that's what I'm saying. Learn about the business side of it if you want to make it your career.
Yep.
If it's a hobby, it's just a hobby. But if you're in it to make money, you have to know what you're doing. So watch this podcast all the time.
Do you think I think there will. There'll be a nostalgia element of going to see you guys as well, won't there?
I think there's a lot of that. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of people that, this is what's humbling as well. A lot of people have said, you're my all-time favourite band. I've always wanted you to come back, and now you're back, and it's just the best thing ever. And you're back, and it's better than ever. So that's great, Like I said to you before, you're never going to please everyone. No. So there might be a lot of people that walk away saying, that was cool, but, I like the old guy or whatever. But I guess the reality is it can't be that. It can't be what it was 13, 15, 16 years ago, 20 years ago. It can't ever be that again. Yep. For whatever reason. So this is what we're doing, and I'm doing it again because I want to. And if people want to get on board, great. And if they don't, it's totally fine too. Just don't be a dickhead about it and say stupid shit on stupid social media. And just because you said that, the people will now, absolutely. They always do. And it's funny too, because all the other guys I don't even have Facebook, So all the other guys are so used to it. They know that the best way to deal with trolls is just to ignore them. Yeah. But I don't. I have a crack back every time. I can't help it. I already knew that because I was looking on your Facebook responses from Superheist. I'm going, that's Norton. Norton. I'm having a crack. All right, mate. Really good to talk to you. I'll see you in Brisbane, mate, in November? I'll get the dates up on my website. And November 5th at the zoo. At the zoo? Yep. Yeah. Great venue. Cool. With Earthcaller and Segression. So it's going to be a good night. Cool. All right. Thanks, Richie. Have a good night, mate. And I'll see you then. Take care, buddy. Thanks, mate. All the best. Well, there you go, people. I hope you enjoyed my chat with DW. And as I mentioned, he's been a good mate of mine for many, many years. And he even used to record my band Alchemist back in the day and was a great producer. So it's great to see him back on the live circuit with a new record with his band Superheist. And I'm really looking forward to going and checking him out when they come up here in Brisbane and doing their tour. And it's going to be very interesting to see if their old fans come out of the woodwork and support them and watch them. And it's also going to be very interesting to see if they can attract any new followers all of these years later. Anyhow, if you've got any feedback on the podcast or on the interview, I'd love to hear from you. Rodney@musicbusinessfacts.com, or you can search Music Business Facts on Facebook, or hit me up on Twitter @musicbizfacts. And also, with Superheist, if you're interested in checking the band out, I'll put all of their tour dates on my show notes page at musicbusinessfacts.com. Now, I just wanted to remind you guys that I've just about finished another fantastic course that I've been working on. This one's with Andy Farrow, who's the manager of Opeth and Devon Townsend. And Andy, he really is a supremely smart music businessman. And if you'd like to look into that course, you can go and check it out over at howtomanagebands.com. All right, guys, until the next episode of the show, I'll leave you with this quote of the day, and this one's from the legendary Frank Sinatra, who stated, "The best revenge is massive success." Think long and hard about that one, guys, if anyone ever asks you why you bother, or perhaps tells you that you're never going to make it. Okay, people, this is Rodney Holder, signing off from musicbusinessfacts.com. Until next time, take care.
You've been listening to the Music Business Facts podcast. For more essential music business tips and information, visit musicbusinessfacts.com.